to it. And this is from NBC. They posted this trailer right here. Angel Reese, Stewie, Valkyries, Aja, Kelsey Plum, NECA, Paige. If you know, you know. With basically all the big WNBA players in it. This is the W and this spring. And obviously, there's no CBA signed. And by the way, one thing that people didn't mention is
NBC just did something that could either be brilliant or catastrophic. They dropped a full promotional trailer for the 2025 WNBA season featuring Angel Reese, Brianna Stewart, Aja Wilson, Paige Buchers, and every major star in the league. This is the W in this spring. The tagline promises there's just one problem: there's no signed collective bargaining agreement. No CBA means no season, and NBC is advertising games that might never happen. This isn't the league making optimistic statements. This is a major television network that just paid hundreds of millions of dollars, putting their reputation on the line. So either NBC knows something we don't, or they just opened themselves up to a legal nightmare that could include refunds, breach of advertising claims, and a PR disaster.
The WNBA offered a $50K per player price raise. Like, they literally added an extra 10% to the salary cap from their initial one. They didn't change the max salary, but they bumped the average salary up by $600K as base salary, which is big, by the way. But is this one of those things where you're looking at this where it's like, have the league told them that it's almost signed, sealed, delivered? Do people know and think that it's almost signed?
Here's what makes this even more complicated. The WNBA's latest offer includes a $50,000 per player salary increase on average. That's not a small bump. They increased the salary cap by $600,000 in base salary compared to their initial proposal. They went from $5 million to $5.6 million in total cap space. That's real money being added to the table. But here's the thing that most people aren't understanding. The players aren't actually asking for more money. They're demanding a completely different payment structure. They want revenue sharing, similar to what NBA players have. The WNBA is offering massive salary increases. The players are saying that's not enough. We want a percentage of league revenue instead. Those are two fundamentally different negotiations.
And it's one of those things where this is not like the NBA in 2011 where they could afford a lockout because the players already had money. Other than the rookies who knew they were eventually going to come back into a league where they were going to make millions and millions of dollars. Like, the fact is that there is a world where the WNBA does not exist. There was never a chance of an NBA not existing. It was always whenever this gets sorted, it gets sorted. Not the WNBA is in a very different position than the NBA was, because let's be real, unless you're playing unrivaled, you're in a bit of a weird situation.
Now let's talk about what NBC is risking here. If you saw that promotional trailer and decided to buy a year-long Peacock subscription specifically for WNBA coverage, and then there's no season, what happens? NBC has to have some form of legal protection built into their contract with the WNBA. They have to, because advertising a product you can't deliver is false advertising, and that opens the door to refunds at minimum, potentially lawsuits at maximum. The fact that NBC is willing to run this promotion tells us something important. Either they have ironclad guarantees from the league that a deal is imminent, or they have contractual protection that gets them their money back if the season doesn't happen. Networks don't gamble hundreds of millions of dollars on hope.
Form of, if nothing else, a guaranteed refund. I don't know anything legally, but like, surely, if you saw this advertisement and you bought Peacock for the year, you bought a year of Peacock today, you could win $1 million. I'm sure you could go to them and say, I bought this for WNBA and advertised, it didn't happen, give me a refund. You probably freaking will. Like, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know. The league told them the deal is all but inked. That would be my guess. That would be my guess. A big mistake if y'all force people to subscribe.
Let's compare this to the NBA lockout in 2011. When the NBA had their work stoppage, players could afford to wait it out. They'd already made millions. Rookies knew that eventually the league would come back and they'd get their payday. the NBA was never in danger of not existing. Everyone knew the lockout was temporary leverage, not an existential threat. The WNBA is in a completely different position. Most players don't have massive savings to fall back on. The league itself is still building toward profitability. A canceled season doesn't just mean lost wages. It means lost momentum during the biggest growth period in league history. Caitlin Clark's rookie season drove unprecedented ratings. The expansion draft is coming. New teams are investing. This is the worst possible time for a work stoppage.
The players aren't actually asking for more money. They're asking for a new payment structure, which, okay, fair enough, but it becomes very awkward when you only own a certain percentage of your league. But yeah, this is a weird one. This really is a weird one when it comes down to it for NBC, because I don't know what NBC are going to do if there's no season. I don't know what any of these networks are going to do if there's no season. Like, do they have...
And here's where the players' ownership stake makes this even more awkward. The WNBA players collectively own a percentage of the league itself that was part of the previous CBA. So when they're negotiating for revenue sharing, they're essentially asking for a cut of the profits while also being partial owners of those same profits. It's a complicated financial structure that doesn't have a clean parallel in other sports leagues. The league is saying, we'll give you guaranteed salary increases that represent a 7 times increase from previous agreements. The players are saying, we don't want guaranteed money, we want a percentage that could be worth more or less depending on league performance. That's a fundamental philosophical difference about how compensation should work.
System for everything. I don't know. I really don't know. But it is what it is. And I still think it's the likelihood of there being a season is high. I don't think it's 50-50 yet. When it gets to the stage where I believe it's more likely, we'll see with the next WNBPA response, because I think it's also positive that the WNBPA have not called it a slap in the face. I've not said it's like putting a lipstick on a pig. I've not responded with anything or publicly started posting on social media about this, or like asking them to write angry letters towards Adam Silver.
Now look at what hasn't happened, and this is actually significant. The WNBA Players Association hasn't called this latest offer a slap in the face. They haven't said it's putting lipstick on a pig. They haven't posted angry social media statements. They haven't organized letter-writing campaigns to Adam Silver. Since NBC dropped that promotional trailer, the Players Union has been notably quiet. That silence is important. When negotiations are truly deadlocked, when both sides are dug in and nowhere close to agreement, you see public posturing, you see statements to the media, you see social media campaigns. The fact that we're not seeing that suggests something is happening behind closed doors. Either they're close to a deal, or the Players Union leadership is telling members to stay quiet while they work.
Could probably negotiate. They've gone from 5 to 5.6 million. The players could probably negotiate another million on the salary cap, which is again an extra 100k per player on average. So basically from the last CBA, from the one 6 weeks ago, they could probably bump up the average salary to 650k from 450k base salary. They absolutely could go and do something like that. Maybe bring the rookie salary up to 300k. They absolutely have the ability to.
Here's the math that matters. The WNBA could probably negotiate another $1 million onto the salary cap. That would bring it from $5.6 million to $6.6 million. That's another $100,000 per player on average. They could potentially push rookie salaries up to $300,000. They could bump the average base salary from $450,000 to $650,000 compared to the last CBA. Those are real tangible improvements that would make WNBA players among the highest paid women's professional athletes in the world. But if the players are locked into demanding revenue sharing as a non-negotiable principle, then no amount of salary increases will close this gap. And that's where we find out if this is about money or about the structure of how that money is determined.
I think there's no way that a network would be posting this unless they were confident. Especially when you put fucking neck in the trailer. Like, I don't think this is going to put pressure on the players, because a network is not going to be putting pressure on the players, because the network can probably almost certainly get their money back if there's not going to be a WNBA season. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I still think the likelihood is well above 50% of there being a season. And anyway, yeah.
So let's address the elephant in the room. What are the actual odds of a season happening? Despite all the uncertainty, despite the lack of a signed CBA, the likelihood is still well above 50%. Here's why. NBC doesn't run promotional campaigns for products that don't exist unless they have inside information. The cost of producing that trailer, buying the ad placements, and risking their reputation is too high. They know something. Whether it's a handshake agreement, a framework deal, or just extremely confident projections from league sources, NBC believes there will be a season. The WNBA increased their offer significantly after the players rejected the first proposal. That shows willingness to negotiate, not a hardline stance. The players' union has gone quiet instead of ramping up public pressure. That suggests productive conversations are happening. And most importantly, nobody can afford for there not to be a season. The league loses momentum, the players lose income. The networks lose content. The new expansion teams lose their launch window. Everyone loses. The pressure to make a deal is enormous from all sides. The question isn't whether they'll reach an agreement. The question is what that agreement will look like, and whether the players will accept guaranteed salary increases instead of the revenue-sharing model they're pushing for. This is a negotiation where both sides have legitimate points. The players deserve to be paid more, and the league's growth supports higher salaries. But the league also needs financial stability, and revenue sharing creates risk that could backfire if growth slows. The compromise probably looks like higher guaranteed salaries, with some form of performance bonuses tied to league revenue benchmarks. Not pure revenue sharing, but not purely fixed salaries either. NBC's promotional trailer isn't just marketing. It's a signal. It's a network with hundreds of millions of dollars invested telling everyone that they believe this gets resolved. And when someone with that much money on the line makes that kind of public statement, you pay attention. The WNBA season will almost certainly happen. The only question is whether it starts on time or whether we see a delayed start while the final details get hammered out. But betting against a season at this point means betting that everyone involved is willing to destroy the biggest growth opportunity in league history over the specific mechanism of how players get paid. That's not a bet I'd take. So what do you think? Will the players accept higher guaranteed salaries, or are they willing to risk the season to get revenue sharing? And more importantly, if you were a player making an average of $200,000 last year, would you risk getting $0 this year to fight for a different payment structure? Let me know in the comments, because this is the decision every WNBA player is facing right now.